Hello again, everybody, and welcome to episode number 25 of going through a 1971 Topps Vending Box. Since it's episode 25, we are also going to talk a little bit about the 1925 World Series participant Washington Senators, and more. What I'm going to actually talk about is the 1924 World Series involving the New York Giants and the Washington Senators. I couldn't do it for episode 24 because that had to belong to Willie Mays, but we're going to do it here in 25 since they were also in the 25 World Series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But first, let's get to going through about a pack's worth of these 71 cards, kind of going back. Imagine we're in 1971, going to Pancake Grocery, which is a little grocery store down the street from where I lived. Old Mr. Pancake there with his baseball cards, packs in the corner, and I grab a pack and let's see who we get. So we start out with, that's a nice one, Larry Boa, All-Star Rookie. It's his second card. What's that? That's just a little debris of cardboard on the card, but looks like a good card otherwise. Boa. And we come up with the Padre rookies. Pretty well centered card. Got a Mike Cuellar. We have had a few nice Cuellars thus far. Good lefty pitcher. Pitched those World Series winning Orioles in 1970. And in the World Series also in 69 and 71. Mickey Lolich was the 1968 World Series star. Just a little off center on that card, but really good pitcher. 71, I think he had over 300 strikeouts, 25 wins maybe that year. Had a really good year. There's the Orioles winning their 3-game playoff against the Twins, 3-0, celebrating. Ended up going to the World Series, which they also won in 1970. Got another Oreo here, another Oreo pitcher. Out of the bullpen, we've got the Reds rookie card. This one we've had trouble with centering up to this point. This one's a little better. Still not perfect, but not bad. And we got the Senators catcher, Paul Casanova. A little off center there. We got an AL playoff game. Dave McNally. We've got an Orioles theme going in this pack, don't we? We've got, it's our third card of an Orioles. This is their starting catcher, Elrod Hendricks. Very nice centering, nice card. Got 3 Oreos. And a couple playoffs with Oreos in them, so big time Oreos. So I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got exactly, that's our pack right there. What we get. All right, let's switch things over and talk a little bit about these teams that were in the World Series in 1924 and what might have been the best World Series in the history of baseball, 1924. Now, I really like the 1991 World Series, where the Twins came out on top. Jack Morris going 10 innings in Game 7 against the Braves. John Smoltz pitching that last game for the Braves. But 24 might have been even better. And this was a precursor of the Minnesota Twins, the Washington Senators. Only made 3 World Series and just won 1. But in 24, they were playing the New York Giants. And look at all these. These are all Hall of Famers from the New York Giants. Larry Fritsch, 20-year-old shortstop, Stonewall Jackson. Got young, I think he was a rookie then, Bill Terry. Got Ross Youngs in the outfield. You got High Pockets, George Kelly, who was a first baseman. Then when Terry played first, he'd move over to second. You got this is their third baseman, Freddie Lindstrom. Their left fielder was Hack Wilson. And then our Hall of Fame manager in John McGraw. Senators, you got an executive here in Clark Griffith. manager, second baseman, Bucky Harris. I'm not sure if Kovaleski pitched much in 24, more than 25, but he was a 20-game winner in 25. Sam Rice, good speedy outfielder. Goose Goslin was one of their top hitters, so was Rice. And then you have Walter Johnson, who may be the best pitcher in the history of baseball. But in 1924 was in his 18th season. He was getting a little long a tooth. A lot of this history I'm going to get to do a little storytelling came from this book it was actually written by Walter Johnson's grandson, Henry Thomas. Really good book. Nice storytelling, good history of Walter Johnson and then of these 2 World Series. So game 1 played in Washington, and it ended up being a 2-1 game in the bottom of the 9th. Giants are leading, Senators down. The 2 runs scored on homers that were both hit in these temporary bleachers that they put up in Washington because they wanted to get more fans in. One of them by George Kelly, the other by Bill Terry. A little glare there. That's Terry's 1934 Gaudy card. Was a real good hitter at this time. He was still young though. So that was the only 2 runs off Walter Johnson. Senators tie it up in the bottom of the 9th, 2-2. Game ends up going into the 12th inning, still 2-2. The Giants score 2 runs in the 12th inning. Bottom of the 12th comes up. All of a sudden, it's a 4-3 game. Bucky Harris on third base, 2 outs. Goose Goslin at the plate hits a slow roller. Second baseman charges it, who at the time was George Kelly. Charges the ball. Bang, bang play at first base where Bill Terry catches it. Umpire takes a little while, finally calls him out. Senators couldn't believe it. They thought they had tied the game. But game is over. Giants are victorious in game 1, 2-1. In that game, Walter Johnson tied the World Series strikeout record with 12 strikeouts. But to no avail as they lost 2-1. Johnson's not feeling real good after being that many years in the majors, that many wins. And he was still a good pitcher, still won 23 games that season. And pitched like 280 innings, led the league in strikeouts, so he's still good. He's definitely not throwing as hard as he was in his prime, but he's still a good pitcher. But after 18 seasons, loses his first game he gets to throw in the World Series. Game 2, different story. It goes to the bottom of the 9th, tied again. This time the Senators walk off the Giants, win the game 4-3. The Giants had scored 2 runs in the top of the 9th to tie it, but it didn't work out as the Senators win. Now we're tied 1-1. Now we move to the Polo Grounds in New York. Game 3, the Senators win. No, the Senators lost. Giants win 6-4. But even bigger blow was they lost their shortstop, Roger Peckinpah, who broke his leg running out a grounder. Game 4 comes around. Normally it'd be Walter Johnson's game to pitch, but they thought, throwing 12 innings in game 1, let's not do that. Let's start a lefty they got, George Modridge, and he actually pitched really well. Only gave up 3 hits in 7 1/3 innings. Fred Marbury, who was a closer, back in the time there weren't a whole lot of closers, but he had 15 saves in the regular season. He saved that game, and the Senators win. Now we're tied 2-2. Game 5, it's Walter Johnson's to start. He was really trying to get Peckinpah to play shortstop, even though he had a broken leg, but Peckinpah said, I just can't do it. He tried, like in pregame and stuff, but he just couldn't move around well enough. So they've got a little makeshift infield with third baseman playing short, second baseman playing third, new second baseman. In that game, starts off, Walter Johnson hit a ball off the left field wall. He was a pretty good hitter as well, but Hack Wilson, who is much more known for his later years with the Cubs. This is his 1931, while he's with the Cubs, 1931 W517 card. He fielded that ball that Johnson hit off the wall, threw a bullet to second base, threw out Johnson trying to get a double. Thing was, the wall was only 257 feet to left field in the Polo Grounds. Also in that game, Ralph Terry hit a line drive that manager John McGraw said the deepest line drive I've ever seen hit, hardest line drive I've ever seen hit. It hit off the center field fence. Center field in Polo Grounds is 484 feet. So he hit it on a rope, 484 feet. Ended up with a triple. Later, there was a guy for the Giants that hit one over that 257 right field fence for a home run. So almost half the distance, ended up with a home run. But that game was close. The Giants leading 3-2 going into the 8th after Goose Goslin for the Senators had hit a long home run. It was his 3rd of the series. Tied Babe Ruth for the most home runs in a World Series. This is Goslin's 1933 Gaudy card. And see the front and the back of that. Goslin had tied Babe Ruth for most home runs in a World Series, brought the game to 3-2. But weird things happened in the 8th. And Walter Johnson, I've shown you this card before, that's his 1911 Mecca card. It's a double-header card that's also his catcher at the time. Gabby Street on there. But kind of a neat other thing, I was just met up with a friend of mine from high school, the one that was my best friend that I collected cards with. Found out he's still collecting cards. He's out in Connecticut now, but we met at a Twins game and he's back in town. His wife is actually collecting these Mecca doubleheader cards, and one of the cards she has is a Walter Johnson. Thought that was kind of cool. My wife sure could care less about baseball cards, but neat little thing. So anyway, we're back to the game 5. 8th inning didn't go so well for Walter Johnson. There were just some weird little nubbers and error 2 mixed in there, and all of a sudden the Giants score 3 runs and they end up winning the game 6-2. Walter Johnson's not feeling good at all. Loses 2 World Series games. Team's down 3-2. Just great career, and all of a sudden not looking good here in the World Series. But game 6 comes around and the Senators come back and win this game after Bucky Harris had a 2-run single. Helped their team win 3-2. Actually, in this game, Roger Peckinpah played shortstop, even though he could barely move. But unfortunately, in the 9th inning, he fielded a ball up the middle, took kind of a high hop. He had to jump up to get it. And as he caught the ball, when he landed on his broken leg. And he was just writhing in pain after that. He was still able to flip the ball to second baseman Bucky Harris for a force out. Helped actually save the game and get them to game 7, but now he was done for sure. So we get to game 7. We're tied 3-3. It's not like today's game where it's set up who's going to be the home team. So they have a coin flip. Clark Griffith, executive with the Senators, provides the silver dollar and wins the coin flip. So they play in Washington, get to play in front of all the home fans. They say Clark Griffith carried that silver dollar in his pocket the rest of his life. But game 7 comes, and who's going to start for this game? Well, Senators are not real fresh on pitchers. Probably the freshest is their game 4 pitcher, that lefty, who threw real well. And so they thought, well, let's start him, but let's not, because if we start him, I'm not sure what they're going to do with one of their best hitters, lefty Bill Terry, who at the time was young and only platooning. So left-handed hitter, he said, let's start a righty, and we're going to do kind of the opener thing. We're going to start a righty, and then after a few batters, that way Terry will be in the lineup. Then we're going to take him out. We're going to put in our lefty, and we'll see what they do with Terry. And it's a win-win. Either he's going to have to hit lefty-lefty, or they're just going to take him out. So they do that, except the starter, who's I can't remember what his name was, Ogden. He started the game, Curly Ogden, and he started the game by striking out 18-year-old leadoff hitter Fred Lindstrom. And so, geez, strikes him out. Let's leave him in. So they left him in. He walked their number 2 hitter, Larry Fritsch. That's Frisch's 33 Gaudy here as well. played a lot of years with the Cardinals, but this time he was with the Giants. And after he walked Fritsch, then they made the change. Then they bring in the lefty, Modric, who had started game 4. And Modric, again, pitched really well. It was a 0-0 game in the 5th inning. The 0-0 tie broken by Bucky Harris, hitting his 2nd home run of the World Series. This is a guy who hit 9 career home runs, but he hit 2 in that World Series. So that breaks the tie. On that home run, Hack Wilson, who probably was a little more agile in his younger years. We know him more for that 56 homer, 191 RBI season with the Cubs, but he went crashing through the left field wall, broke the wall, might have had a concussion that came out back then, you know, no concussion protocol. So he argues that he can stay in, and he did. And actually the next batter, who was Sam Rice, hit a ball, a line drive to left field that Wilson had to come in for, came in, make a diving catch. So actually he probably wasn't too bad. So he's still in the game. Then later in that game, they bring in Fred Marbury they brought Marbury in after Terry had been pinch hit for. So Terry was 0 for 2 off the lefty, and they pinch hit for him with a righty. At that time, Bucky Harris makes a move, brings in their closer, Fred Marbury. And Marbury did well until the Giants broke out, took a 3-1 lead. That was actually in the top of the 6th, so actually he didn't do too well. During all that, going to the bullpen was Walter Johnson, who had just pitched game 5 and lost. Man, the fans went crazy when they saw Walter Johnson going out there. Giants up 3-1. Now we're in the bottom of the 8th. Senators score 2 runs, tie the game 3-3. In getting those 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th, Marbury got pinch hit for. So the Senators need a new pitcher. Who do they turn to? The big train. Walter Johnson comes in the game, losing 2 World Series games already. Is he going to be the GOAT here and lose 3 games in the World Series? He's in the 9th inning, shuts the door down. The Giants bring in the guy who threw 7 innings in game 6, because they're kind of down on pitchers too, Artie Neff. And he's pitching well as well as Johnson. The game goes 10th inning, 11th inning. Nobody's scoring runs. We're still 3-3. And then I'm actually going to read a little bit out of this book. Some of the, hopefully I can bring out some of the excitement happening here. The packed stadium in continuous boil since Harris's hit tying the game was quieted a little by the end of the Nationals rally. For now, as the teams changing sides for the 9th inning, the fans turned to the sight of Walter Johnson walking to the mound. A tremendous shout went up all at once, followed by the chant, "Walter, Walter, Walter," resounding through the rafters. The park was in fearful uproar. Clark Griffith remembered. Utter strangers were hugging each other in the stands because Walter was getting one more chance in the series. It was his game now. Uppermost in the minds of some, though, were the consequences of another failure. Poor old Walter, it's a shame to send him in, signed Christy Mathewson in the press box, knowing all too well the sitting defeat in a World Series. Al Schott said, "I wouldn't have given 10 cents for Johnson's chances when he came in. He was tired." Even Hazel, that's his wife, had doubts. Despite her husband's assurances that morning that he was primed for another battle, she told her readers, she was writing a little diary of this World Series, she told her readers, "I credited that to willingness of spirit rather than strength of flesh. I could not believe he was ready, fearing that the strain of watching him pitch would prove too great. Hazel at first wanted to leave the stands and sit in the car before being convinced by her companion, California Congresswoman Mae Nolan, to stay. Hazel did insist, though, that they leave their grandstand boxes for the anonymity of the bleachers in case her nerves snapped. She continued to clutch tightly the horseshoe that had been in her hand since the start of the game. Nobody in the ballpark was more keenly aware of the challenge at hand than the great pitcher himself. I remember thinking, I'll need the breaks, he said 10 years later. If I didn't actually pray, I sort of was thinking along those lines. A cloud of cigar and cigarette smoke had settled over the field, and Johnson took solace in even the little bit of cover it provided from the 30,000 pairs of eyes boring in on him. As he reached the mound, Bucky Harris was there to meet him. It was as though Harris introduced with some pride his old reliable, one observer thought. Indeed, Johnson's previous losses and lack of rest notwithstanding, it might have just at that moment occurred to the young manager that for this ultimate situation, he had at his disposal not merely the best pitcher on the team or even the best in the league, he had the greatest pitcher in the history of baseball to call upon. Harris patted Johnson on the back, telling him, "You're the best we've got, Walter. We've got to win or lose with you." The pitcher gritted his teeth and took the ball. I never saw such a grim face as Johnson's when Harris gave him the ball, Clark Griffith recalled. He grabbed the ball so hard that the white showed through his knuckles. In the 8th inning, with the Nationals' cause looking increasingly hopeless, Griffith had moved from his box to the stands to a row of steps next to the dugout, positioning himself to escort President Coolidge out of the park through the ballplayers' tunnel. The moment he got there, the rivalry began that would tie the game. So the old fox, superstitious like so many baseball men, didn't budge for the rest of the inning, even afraid even to sit down. He was still standing the same spot when Johnson came in and would remain there for the rest of the game. Walter took his 5 warm-ups deliberately, but as the ball slapped into Rule's big mitt with a crack of a rifle shot, the throngs were startled to the realization that the big fellow's fastball had somehow been restored to him. Now we're going to jump ahead to the 12th inning. All right, here we are, 12th inning. McNeely swung at the first pitch and fouled it back over the stands. Bentley sent him a fastball. McNeely, this is the bottom of the 12th. And McNeely swung at this one too, knocking a hard bouncing ball directly at Lindstrom, third baseman, a few feet to the left of third. Ruel, seeing that it was a perfect double play ball, decided to run as hard as he could, he's the catcher, and try to attract a tag. He could see Lindstrom holding his hands at his chest, waiting for the ball. Then suddenly, leap into the air. Astonishingly, beyond all odds, it happened again. The ball had hit a pebble or something, perhaps the same something as in the 8th inning, and bounded completely over Lindstrom's head and into left field. Ruel swerved back into the baseline, heading straight for third. With Ruel, the slowest runner on the team, this is the Senators catcher, he's starting at second. With Ruel, the slowest runner on the team, Schott had already considered the risk of sending him in on a sharp hit. If there's any chance at all, he would wave him around. Now Ruel was clugging toward Schott, who circled his arm and around like a windmill gone berserk to signal to keep going. Ruel made sure to stomp on the bag hard, then put his head down and charged for home as fast as he could go, but not nearly fast enough to suit Griffith. It seemed like an eternity. Or Harris, in on the on-deck circle, convinced that the harder Ruel tried to run, the slower he moved. It didn't matter, though, because there was no throw to the plate, and never would be. Not expecting a routine ball to make it past Lindstrom, Musial, the left fielder, hadn't charged in on it, a costly lapse. And when he did reach the ball, Musial just picked it up casually, struck it in his glove, and started running in towards the infield with Ruel still only halfway between third and home. It would forever be a mystery to the Nationals as it was to John McGraw, why there wasn't at least a desperation throw. So Ruel crossed the plate to win the World Series. The stadium exploded, the roiling, rocking stands pouring forth with instantaneous flood tide of humanity. And Washington players rushed out from the dugout, and Shelton Ultra came in leaping and yelling from the coaches' boxes to the plate. At the moment, the gray-clad giants stood stunned and motionless, staring in disbelief as Ruel sealed their doom. After rounding first, McNeely turned to watch the events he had set in motion. Walter Johnson, in his gray W monogram sweater, reached second base and stayed there, standing on the bag and looking straight towards home with a broad smile breaking over his face and tears welling up in his eyes. So that was the 1924 World Series. In 25, they made it back, but the Pirates, with some of these stars, this is their manager, Bill McKechnie at the time. That's his 40-play ball. We got a 33 Kiki Kyler, a T207 Max Carey. He was late in his career here, but still good. And one of the best third basemen of all time. This is his 35 Diamond Stars card, Pie Trainer. So that's all I got for today. That was quite a bit. Hopefully you'll be able to watch to the end. And hopefully I did justice to that 1924 World Series. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I got to do this outside again as I waited late enough. I'm not sure if I will be able to do one next week, as we are in high school playoffs and I have no idea. I usually can do these on Thursdays when I have a little more time, and I don't know what next Thursday will be like because it's a playoff game day. So we'll see everybody when I see you. Thanks.